Today we're exploring Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point and Outliers, using The Truman Show as our lens to uncover the hidden forces shaping our world. Have you ever wondered why certain trends suddenly explode into the mainstream? Or why some people seem destined for success while others, just as talented, remain overlooked? Along the way, we'll touch on modern philosophical ideas about control, free will, and how much agency we really have in shaping our own lives. In The Truman Show, Truman Burbank's entire world is carefully constructed. His relationships, his environment, everything is orchestrated. At first, he believes he's making his own choices, but as the movie unfolds, we see the truth. His life is controlled by forces he can't even see. Sound familiar? Just like Truman, we often think we're free agents, but subtle influences are always nudging us, guiding our decisions. Christof, the creator of Truman's world, plays puppet master, manipulating everything around him. The parallel to our lives, the influences are less obvious, but no less real. Now, let's look at Gladwell's The Tipping Point. He explains how ideas, trends, and behaviors reach a critical mass and spread like wildfire. But here's the thing, these tipping points aren't random. They're driven by forces, often invisible to us. Philosopher Michel Foucault would argue that power in society comes from hidden systems that shape our behavior, whether we realize it or not. In The Tipping Point, these systems are people, connectors, mavens, and salesmen who help spread ideas until they hit that critical point. They're the actors in Truman's world, steering him without his knowledge. Foucault called these hidden systems discourses, frameworks that define what's true and normal. But it's not just about who spreads the message, it's about how sticky the message is. Think of the stickiness factor like those repetitive ads for Kaiser Chicken in The Truman Show, designed to grab your attention and stay lodged in your brain. Baudrillard, another philosopher, might say these sticky messages contribute to our hyper-reality, where the line between the real and the constructed becomes blurred. You know, like when you're scrolling through social media and see someone's effortlessly casual beach selfie. Yeah. That probably took 37 attempts and a photo filter. Hyperreality at its finest. Are we reacting to the real world or just to the carefully crafted images meant to stick with us? Baudrillard would argue that in our media-saturated world, simulations can feel more real than reality itself. And then there's the power of context. Remember when Truman tries to escape on a boat and out of nowhere a storm is unleashed to stop him? That's a literal example of how the environment shapes decisions. Gladwell argues that the environment has an enormous impact on our behavior, though it's usually much more subtle than a storm. Today, it's the digital environment with algorithms and targeted content that influences us in ways we don't even notice. Zygmunt Bauman might call this liquid modernity, where power and control have become fluid, harder to detect, but still deeply influential. In this shifting digital world, our sense of self, our values, they're constantly being shaped and reshaped by forces we barely register. So like Truman, we should be looking for the cracks, the falling spotlights, the strange radio broadcasts. What unseen forces are shaping your decisions? Are we really free, or are we living in systems we don't even see? Now let's move on to outliers. If The Truman Show teaches us anything, it's that success can be scripted. Truman's fate wasn't his own. His success or failure was predetermined by the world created around him. In Outliers, Gladwell explains that success in the real world is often shaped by hidden advantages, timing, opportunity, even random factors like birth months. Philosopher Alasdair MacIntyre would argue that we're all embedded in narratives we didn't choose, shaped by structures we didn't create. Truman didn't get to choose his opportunities. They were laid out for him by the producers. In our world, many of us are on paths influenced by timing, societal expectations, and hidden systems of advantage. Take Canadian hockey players, for example. A disproportionate number of elite players are born in January or February, simply because youth hockey leagues give them a physical advantage at a young age. It's not about effort or talent, it's about timing. Just like Truman's world was shaped by timing, many of our paths are defined by these invisible structures. Then there's the 10,000-hour rule. Gladwell says it takes 10,000 hours of practice to master something. But in The Truman Show, Truman's life was rehearsed. He followed the same script every day, but never really grew beyond it. Philosopher Bernard Stiegler would argue that true mastery comes not from following a script, but from breaking out of it. In a world increasingly driven by routine and automation, true mastery requires cultivating your own unique skills and breaking free of what's been laid out for you. Truman never got that chance, and often we don't either. Are we really practicing deliberately, or are we just living on autopilot? Finally, Outliers also delves into how cultural legacies shape success. In The Truman Show, Truman inherits values and behaviors from a fabricated world. Similarly, in our lives, cultural legacies influence us in ways we rarely notice. Philosopher Pierre Bourdieu talks about cultural capital, the values, knowledge, and behaviors passed down through generations that can either open or close doors. Just like Truman inherited the world created for him, many of us inherit cultural legacies that shape our lives without us even realizing it. So what's the takeaway? Just like Truman eventually realizes his world is controlled by unseen forces, Gladwell reminds us that success, trends, and even our decisions are influenced by factors we don't always see. Whether it's tipping points driven by key influencers or cultural legacies shaping our opportunities, there's always a larger script at work. But unlike Truman, we have the ability to question and change that script. As Truman steps through the door at the end of the movie, leaving behind the artificial world created for him, we too can step through the doors in our own lives. By recognizing the tipping points, hidden advantages, and cultural legacies that shape us, we can start to make choices with greater awareness and agency. So as you go about your week, ask yourself, what opportunities have come your way because of the right timing? What cultural legacies are shaping your path? And most importantly, are you living a life that's truly your own, or is it guided by forces you don't see? Maybe this week, break out of your routine, learn something new, or question a long-held belief. Thanks for tuning in to the Deeper Thinking podcast. Until next time, keep questioning the obvious and digging deeper into the forces that shape our world.